大家好，晚上好. Good evening, everyone. Today I will, in this video, be talking briefly about yesterday, which was World Book Day, obviously celebrating the book and all that it has done to help advance civilization as we've known it throughout the centuries. One of the books I've been reading lately is called The Story of Chinese Books, and it was written by Liu Guojun and Zheng Rusi, translated by Zhou Yicheng, printed by Foreign Languages Press, Beijing, in 1985, and it's a paperback book with, at the beginning, lots of black and white illustrations of the various things that are spoken about in the book, as well as throughout other illustrations. It's a slim volume, and of course it's an older book, so it's not an ancient book, of course, but it's an older one and having to do with the very thing of books. So what I thought I would do this evening is read just a bit in the book and the forward perhaps, and so yeah, let's get to reading here a little bit. Books have played an important role in the history of mankind. With each stage of development in human society, books have become even more important in people's lives, and today they are playing a still greater role in society. But it has taken a long time for books to become what they are today. The Chinese book has a history of over 3,600 years, an interesting history and one full of anecdotes. Before paper was invented, people of different nations throughout the world inscribed their messages on a great variety of materials. Stone, reeds, wax plates, and parchment were used by Europeans. Baked clay was used by the Babylonians. Patra was used by the Indians, and tortoise shells, bones, bronze, stone, bamboo strips, and wooden slats and silk were used by the Chinese. The materials that were used determined the size and form of these books in China. A quote-unquote book carved on stone might be several meters high and more than a meter wide, while each strip of bamboo or each slat of wood in a book measured about a third of a meter in length and 1 or 2 centimeters in width. A silk scroll was usually a third of a meter high and several meters long. Before they were printed by modern methods, Chinese books were carved, incised, and copied by hand. Inscriptions carved or incised on the surface of shells and bones are known as books on tortoise shells and animal bones. The earliest ones date back to the Shang Dynasty, circa 16th century to the 11th centuries BC. As they recorded statements of oracles received by slave owners and were not meant for repeated reading and studying, they are not books in the ordinary sense. In the 13th and 14th centuries BC, the ancient Chinese began to carve or cast inscriptions on bronzeware, and thus they produced books on bronze. For example, the famous Dai Yue Ding, or tripod, cast early in the Western Zhou dynasty, circa 11th century to 770 BC, records the fact that a nobleman was rewarded by the king with land, clothing, chariots, horses, and a large number of slaves. Inscriptions carved on stone tablets are often called books of stone. The earliest one was carved in AD 175, the fourth year of the reign of Siping of the Eastern Han Dynasty, AD 25 to 220. The tablet was inscribed with Confucian classics and placed outside the Imperial Academy in the city of Luoyang so that everybody could read it. Words carved on stone or bronze are not books in the regular sense, of course, but they played the role of books. The first real book appeared in China at the end of the spring and autumn period from 770 to 476 BC. It was called a jianci, or bamboo book, and was written with a brush on strips of bamboo or slats of wood. More than 4,900 such bamboo strips were retrieved during an excavation at Yinchueshan in Shandong in 1972. The writings on the bamboo strips are copies of classics written before the Qin Dynasty, 221 to 207 BC, including works such as Sun Wu's Art of War, Sun Bing's Art of War, the Book of Wei Lao Tzu, Six Strategies, the Book of Guanzi, and the Book of Yanzi. The most significant of these is Sun Bing's Art of War, which had been considered lost for more than 1,000 years. Books were written not only on bamboo strips, but also on scrolls of silk fabric. More than 20 books on such silk scrolls, totaling 100,000 characters, were discovered in 1973 in a Han Dynasty tomb at Mawangdui near Changsha, Hunan Province. Among them were a number of lost books, the most valuable of which were 2 editions of the Book of Lao Tzu. At the end of Edition A and the beginning of Edition B were 4 previously unknown articles omitted from existing editions of that book. The invention of paper in the 1st century AD and the spread of paper-making techniques constituted an important contribution made by the working people of ancient China to the cultural development of the world. When paper replaced the clumsy bamboo strips and expensive silk, the production of books developed rapidly. After that, Chinese books were designed in the form of scrolls. Damaged scrolls of the History of the Three Kingdoms, hand-copied in the 4th century during the Jin Dynasty, were discovered in Xinjiang in 1924, as well as in 1965. These are the oldest rolls of manuscripts to be found in China. In my previous video, that book that I brought up, or actually my first video, sorry. In my first video, that book about the woman who went to China and learned how to make old-style Chinese books, she briefly talks about this very thing in that book, of going to that part of China and looking and seeing some of this stuff there. The invention of block printing in China around the 8th century and of movable type printing in the 11th century were 2 more important contributions of the ancient Chinese working people to world civilization. The earliest printed matter extant in the world is the Diamond Sutra, printed in 868, the year 868, during the 9th year of the Xiantong reign of the Tang Dynasty. After the invention of printing, the number of Chinese books greatly increased, and their subjects covered a far greater range than before, because obviously it got a lot faster to be able to create these very items. History as a Mirror, compiled by Sima Guang in the Song Dynasty, 960 to 1279, is an outstanding book of chronological history. The Taiping Imperial Encyclopedia, Choice Blossoms from the Garden of Literature, Taiping Miscellany, and Encyclopedia of History, all compiled during the Northern Song period from 960 to 1127, are known as the 4 great books of the Song Dynasty. The Taiping Imperial Encyclopedia alone constitutes 1,000 facsimiles of classified entries. The Yongle Encyclopedia of the Ming Dynasty from 1368 to 1644, however, was the largest set of books compiled in ancient China, comprising 22,877 facils, a table of contents of 60 facils, and bound in 11,095 volumes. It is the largest encyclopedia ever produced in the world. The Compendium of Materia Medica, written by Li Shijun during the Ming Dynasty, is a world-famous pharmacopoeia. The complete library of the Four Treasures of Knowledge, compiled during the Qianlong period of the Qing Dynasty from 1644 to 1911, is a gigantic collection of 3,503 titles in 79,337 facils. Most of these works were printed and have been handed down through the centuries to the present day. Some, however, consisted of only one or several manuscript copies because they had too many volumes to be printed by woodblocks. A number of these works have only a few volumes remaining. The rest were lost in wars and other disasters. After the introduction of modern mechanical printing from Europe into China in the early 19th century, book publication underwent momentous changes. The traditional Chinese handicraft method of printing was gradually replaced by modern letterpress, lithographic, and photographic techniques, using machines and automatic printing presses. This book, The Story of Chinese Books, tells how books emerged, developed, and changed in China. This book that I hold in my hands was first published in 1958. This second edition was revised by the authors and includes information on recently unearthed archaeological materials. It also includes extensive supplements and revisions concerning the origin of books in China, particularly in terms of the history and development of printing, block making, and the systemization of books. And to go just a little bit further into Chapter 1, the origin of written Chinese and books. Some form of written language is essential to the formation of books. Without a written language, there could be no books. Therefore, the first thing we need to discuss is how China came to have a written language. So I'm still making my way through this little book, but since I can't always sit at home and read, and have to be about working and doing other things, sometimes I can sit and read on my Kindle instead, on my phone. And so that is actually kind of, as I was reading through that little bit there to create this video, that reminded me of some of the things I was reading about in my book that I'm reading on my Kindle. And my current Kindle read is the Wen Xing Tiao Long by Liu Xie. And it is the first major work of literary criticism written in China over 1,500 years ago. And the one I'm reading on my Kindle is bilingual in Chinese and English, and has copious notes and annotations to help explain and to bring out various aspects of the subject material. Another translation that I also have of this book is called The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons, which I think is an excellent title. I just love that. The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons. What better title for a work on literary criticism? And that one was specifically translated by Vincent Yu Chong-shu. So I'm going to read a little bit out of that because it was so fascinating to me how some of that was worded, And so yeah, we're still going about the subject of books and the invention of books, and from a Chinese perspective, obviously, of how they came into being. This book, The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons, is an excellent English interpretation. And the first chapter is entitled On Tao, the Source. Wen, or pattern, is a very great virtue indeed. It is born together with heaven and earth. Why do we say this? Because all color patterns are mixed of black and yellow, and all shape patterns are differentiated by round and square. The sun and moon, like two pieces of jade, manifest the pattern of heaven. Mountains and rivers, in their beauty, display the pattern of earth. These are, in fact, the Wen of Tao itself. And as one sees above the sparkling heavenly bodies and below the manifold forms of earth, there is established a difference between high and low estate, giving rise to the two archetypical forms. Man, and man alone, forms with these the great Trinity, and he does so because he alone is endowed with spirituality. He is the refined essence of the five elements, indeed the mind of the universe. Now here's where it begins to give a bit more detail as to what we're talking about. Now, with the emergence of mind, language is created, and when language is created, writing appears. This is natural. When we extend our observations, we find that all things, both animals and plants, have patterns of their own. Dragons and phoenixes portend wondrous events through the picturesqueness of their appearance, and tigers and leopards recall the individuality of virtuous men in their striped and spotted variegation. So, of course, it keeps going and going and going, but I just thought it was interesting to, as I was reading this, the story of Chinese books, it brought to mind the book that I was reading on my Kindle. And since April is literary month, that's what I'm calling it, because it all has to do with books and poetry and reading and indie bookstores and library day and all of these various aspects that we wouldn't have if, for whatever reason, books had never been created. So anyway, this video is about getting a little bit longer than what I expected. But anyway, so yeah, I'm working my way through this one, and as well as the one on my Kindle, and enjoying the process. Things I'm learning and remembering things I've already learned, and so hopefully you've perhaps gleaned something from this, if for no other reason than just purely out of curiosity. And so yeah, this will probably actually go out tomorrow. For some reason, it seems YouTube doesn't allow me to upload the same day. I'm not sure why. I have to figure that out yet, I guess. But anyway, talking out loud here. So yeah, we're still in April. It's still the month of books and the literary mind, and so let's keep learning and be glad for the creation of paper, which helped to speed up the process of printing books. And as you see behind me, hundreds of books waiting to be read, or those that have already been read. So yep. 下次见. See you next time.